welcome. Today we're talking a bit more about family group conferencing. Eve's going to be the main presenter and I'm here to support. But before we proceed any further, I'd like to acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the traditional custodians of Australia and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I'm coming to you today from the lands of the Gunai people in Victoria.
Thank you, Joanne, and I'm coming to you from the lands of the Yugambeh people. Okay, thank you, everybody. Welcome. So, as Joanne said today, we will talk quite a bit about family group conferencing. I'd love to know, maybe you just want to put it in the chat, who here has done family group conference training or is a family group conference facilitator. I definitely know Carmen is. Very nice. Okay, so just Carmen. Okay, so I'm going to start with...
And Darlene as well. I think she's having some tech problems.
Yeah, I see her down there, yeah. So I will start just by giving you a brief overview of what family group conferencing is. So if it is something that you are interested to add to your tool belt, we will be talking a bit about really what it is, but also some business and marketing tips as well around how you might get work in family group conferencing. But this is also really useful for any work that you're doing as a consultant as well. If you're a mediator or a family dispute resolution practitioner, then this will also be helpful. And I think what's really important at the end is that we each share the things that have worked well for us, because I know that when we're in small business or as a consultant, sometimes it can be difficult, or what are the best ways or the best avenues in order to be able to secure more work. And if we can share those with each other, I think that's really valuable as an outcome today. So I would love to know in the chat as a consultant or what you're actually doing in the field, in the helping profession. So if you're just able to drop that in the chat box, so then we have a bit of an understanding of, and if you're not working privately as a consultant as well, if it's something that you're interested in, if you could let us know in the chat, that's something you're interested in. Yep. So I'm a GC facilitator. And also a trainer. Yeah, we've got some more. Melissa, family law solicitor about to commence FDR, great, and looking to include family group conferencing as part of that. Wonderful. Yeah, it's good to have all those different pieces. Family dispute resolution, conflict resolution, customized family mediation, conscious separation, co-parenting, reunification therapy. There's lots there. You've got lots of tools in your belt, Dee. That's lovely. I'm sure that family group conferencing would be a nice addition to that. And maybe there's some things that you can come and share in one of these sessions as well. I think it's always great to see the different pieces that everybody has expertise in.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited about this today, Eve. Thank you so much. So yeah, really looking forward to understanding the strategy and the process and what the outcomes are to be achieved. So yeah, really looking forward to today.
Great. Okay, wonderful. So let's start off with just a little bit of an overview. And if you do want to dive into it more, Dee, as well, we'll be doing a more briefer overview, but Joanne can definitely send you some more detailed presentations and information that we've done on family group conferencing. To give you a quick understanding of even who I am, if you don't know who I am yet, I am an FGC facilitator. I first started in the pilot program for New South Wales in 2000. I was working in family work, family preservation, and I decided to take part in the pilot program that I was invited to be for, and I was doing that for Ballina, Byron Shires for the pilot program. So that was a certain amount of referrals and cases that we got trained in, and then they decided to give us a certain amount of cases for that pilot program. Working in preservation work, I think it was family work right at that time, but then I launched, when the family preservation launched a couple of years later, I was then in family preservation. Family group conferencing goes back a fair way for me, but what I do find in the work that I did as family work, in working with families, there was definitely a disconnect there between the services that we're working with and that extended family network. This was a really inclusive way that everybody could be in the same place and able to work on and really be part of that creation of the plan. So that utilising that extended family network as support network, their support community, and having family being able to make choices into what is that sort of care and case plan for their family and what is the best choices for the children that are in their family. And with family group conferencing, it really was able to be that platform that would help families to make more family-led decisions. It was a family-led decision-making process that allowed them to really make decisions. And what I found it to be, it was not in a tokenistic way, because in the work that I was doing, there was always a lot of discussion about family-led decision-making, but actually the processes weren't really made conducive for that. So the case conferences that we were having, and I would go to a case conference with a family I was working with, and there was only maybe one family member, if we were lucky, that was actually there. And so it was really about the services that were there, whether that was a psychologist, the social worker, the psychiatrist, the school counsellor. There was a table of services, which you probably all understand and know if you work in the industry. And it was very much heavily stacked with service workers. And of course, this was an environment that families felt then they had to actually say yes and make a plan based on the recommendations of all the professionals, as opposed to how can my family support me and what are the best decisions for my family. And as a family and that extended family, they know what are all the dynamics that are at play in this family and these children's lives, and they understand what might be the best decisions or the best supports to keep the children safe and to support the children and the families to make changes in their lives. I saw this as such a table turner in the work that I was doing. And so I thought this was really wonderful, because it's really about, sometimes, like most of the time, there's no service workers at family group conferences. There's just the referring caseworkers. So when we're talking about within the child protection context, which is where it's mainly you, it would be the manager of casework and the caseworker. This is where it really truly is a family-led decision-making process, because families, the extended family network is the main people that's sitting around the table. They're talking about the things and the dynamics within their family. They're talking about how they can contribute and how they can support families. So I know I went on a bit of a rant, but Joanne's used to those with me. But I feel really passionate about this process, and actually that it's not just words that we're meant to practice by. It is actually a framework that really embeds family decision making. It is very empowering for families. I've facilitated hundreds of conferences, and I've facilitated conferences where children are not able in that time to be returned to their parents. There's already care orders that are in place, but I've had young mothers still stand up and present the plan that they have created with their family on the day. That plan's not even about, even if that's their current wishes, that their children are living with them, but they were able to participate in what was the care needs of their children and how could they have contact with their children, who were the important people in their children's lives. So they were actually really actively able to participate, and they felt so empowered by that process that they were able to stand up and share that plan. The things that I see in family group conferencing, although it is a formal meeting process, because we do have a framework to follow, and I think that's important because then everybody has this understanding of how the process is going to go, which in an already daunting scenario, it is nice for people to have structure as well. And of course, we're talking about very sensitive issues around child protection as well, and how you keep children safe. So there is formalities around that. But these are the three main aspects of family group conferencing in terms of some of the really great outcomes that I see and the framework that it's really embedded on. And I think the one really important difference to understand with family group conferencing is that it really respects the voice of the child, and that children have a right to have their voices heard, and that is embedded through everything that we do in family group conferencing. So this can be a little bit different in terms of their participation and how plans are created in comparison to other models that you might see in mediation. It's really looking at children are involved in these conferences. They are part of the conferences. They attend the conferences. That's always dependent on many factors, and if it is the right space for them. The biggest intent that they do have a piece of participation. So whether that's physically or whether that's something that they help to create the invitations, they have involvement all the way along, and it's really looking at what are their needs throughout this process. Some of the best conferences that I've been part of is ones where we do actually have the children present. We do have the young person present. Any questions about that? I know I'm just talking, but if you have any questions, please put it in the chat box or let me know, but we will have a chance to talk about this at the end as well. But just drop it in the chat and I'll stop and we'll answer. So with family group conferencing, and I think this is why it's also very important that we stay to the framework, because it was created in New Zealand among Maori families, and it was identified that something was required because there was an overrepresentation of Maori children in out-of-home care, and it was identified that the best people to make decisions for children were their families and their communities. So there was, I guess you could say, a panel or a circle created that really came up with this framework of how communities and families could keep children safe and keep them connected within those communities. So the way that it was created deserves the respect of how its continued frameworks, I guess, rolled out in the way that we use family group conferencing. So I always practice from that model. I know that it has been adapted in different ways and for different reasons and different communities as well. So when we look at it in different cultural aspects, there might be some flexibility and adjustments to how we deliver that based on the needs of that family or that community or culture. So we started using it in Australia in 1992. I think that was in a very small way at that stage. As I said, the pilot program was in 2011. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And that was something that I was part of. And we're particularly using it as a culturally appropriate way for Indigenous families and Torres Strait Islander families in Australia to be able to bring that extended family network together when we're working with them to create plans. Does anyone have any questions around that? I won't read everything that's on here or go into too much detail, I think, because we just don't have the time for that today, because I wanted to also talk a little bit about it as an extra tool or income stream as well for yourself. Obviously, I do it because I'm passionate about it. We all do this work, obviously, because we're passionate about it, but it's definitely another great piece for you to be able to find other work in the industry as well. So in terms of the stages of a family group conference, and this is based on the New South Wales panel of providers, so it can differ when we're in different states or the way that people use it. But the New South Wales model, the panel of providers, that is sticking also to the New Zealand framework. When a referral is made to you as a family group conference facilitator, the first thing that you do is start to prepare for the meetings, and that is to first talk with the referring caseworkers, and then you actually start talking to all of those extended family network. So you might have 15, 20 family members in a family group conference that you're facilitating. So you go and start to meet with all of those family members, and that may also include the children and young people. As best as possible, we meet in person with everybody, and then we bring everybody together. So we plan and organise. You are a facilitator of the process. So you plan and organise everybody to come together, and everybody to come together really well informed, so they understand what they're doing, what's happening on the day, what are you talking about, what questions, what are you planning around, because what are the non-negotiables in coming in? Because the more information and the more well-informed that people can come in, the less anxiety they're going to have on the day, and they're going to feel more confident to be able to plan. Because of course, the first reaction when you go to somebody to say, we're all going to come together as a family and talk about what they think is, everyone's going to talk about all the problems and everything I've ever done that was a mistake. But that's not what family group conferencing is about. And it is about moving forward into the future and creating a plan for the safety, being, and care of children. When people are really well informed and they understand properly what this is about, and that it's about moving forward with a plan that they create, that relieves a lot of anxiety, makes them understand and feel really confident around that. Carmen, I'm currently in the FGC pilot program in Victoria. Oh, wow, great. It is different from New South Wales in that it is voluntary participation. It is actually voluntary participation also in New South Wales. I think in this group we all understand that voluntary can be a very grey area. There's a lot of things that we talk about that in the training as well. But yeah, it is voluntary. Oh, are you saying Victoria is not voluntary participation?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm having trouble with those headphones.
Voluntary, that voluntary to participate in the program.
Yeah.
Not compulsory.
Yeah.
Like they won't get re-reported to child protection if they don't participate.
Yeah. It is actually the same in New South Wales.
Okay.
Yeah. But it is, most of the referrals in the panel is coming from Child Protection Services. So
yeah, that's where ours come from only. Yeah.
And okay, no bottom lines. The bottom lines, that's something we definitely go into in the training. So we probably don't have enough time today to really unpack the differences. But the bottom lines, non-negotiables, are not really things that they need to meet so much or do, but more so sometimes it's just we're not going to be discussing about that because of particular reasons, or it might be things around safety in terms of the children. The bottom lines might be the children can't have contact with that family member, for example. That's the bottom lines in this context of family group conferencing, as opposed to sometimes they could be things that they need to do. But it's interesting that there's no bottom lines at all. I actually like that because I always say when I'm training people, have as few bottom lines as possible.
Yeah, and you always mentioned try and work with the caseworker or whatever because sometimes they can be a bit inflexible in how they
I think that's great. If everyone's making a plan about keeping children safe, then I think some of those things need to be upheld anyway, and I think bottom lines can just be really constraining for people. That's interesting.
Yeah. And Melissa's got a question about support for the child or young person, which might be a good spot to comment on too.
Are the children allowed to choose where they sit? Yeah, absolutely. We don't choose where people sit. Again, that's a deeper conversation that you probably understand as a mediator as well, that we might be thinking about those things and how we position the room and the seating, but someone can definitely sit with a parent or caregiver, no problem at all. So there is a lot of decision and choices here. And it might be things that you go through with the family and the children prior as well to the conference. If you identify that would be some good discussions. The children and young person absolutely can and ideally have a support person. This is not forced upon anyone. This is not a mandatory thing, but they are definitely all offered. What I find with children and young people, they often say, I want my cousins. That's something that makes them feel comfortable in the conference. I'll give you an example of who might be a support person for a young person. During COVID, we had a few family group conferences where young people were there, and I had breakout rooms set up for the school counsellors or the youth workers that they had. So if at any point we had a break, they were able to go in there in the breakout rooms. If at any point they felt like they wanted to have a private conversation, they could do that. So it could be youth workers, it could be school counsellors, it could be somebody that's really close in the family. It may be a child advocate. It absolutely could be anyone that they identify. Sometimes they've had someone from the PCYC come with them. Like, it really depends on the young person. But then you have to have those conversations, of course, with that representative and how they can support the young person to have that voice, but also just to be really careful in terms of that they're not making any suggestions around the decision making the family are actually making. Yeah, they absolutely do make recommendations. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I'll say out loud what that was. Are the courts aware of FGC and do they make recommendations? So yeah, quite a lot. The courts make recommendations for family group conferencing. Would a co-parent agreement? We might leave this to the end when we talk about the bridging of the practices, I think, because this is something that Joanne and I have been talking and working on a bit is around FDRP and FGC. Sometimes, but the answer is yes, sometimes, and no, sometimes. But they are very different things. Really about, there was a family group conference that I decided not to go ahead with because I didn't feel it was a family group conference. It was actually more suited to an FDRP. We have to distinguish the difference of these and when is it appropriate, when is it the right fit for an FGC. So the family group conference process on the actual day is they have information sharing, they have meal time after that information sharing. This information sharing could go for 1 hour, it could go for 2 hours maximum, usually about an hour I find that goes for. It depends how many family members are there as well. Then the next stage after we have a meal break all together is the family time. So this is where that family decision making really comes in as well, because they have the family time with nobody present, not even the facilitator present in that time, because no matter how much rapport you've built with the family, there's always going to be a dynamic shift when you're in there as a family group conference facilitator. But everyone's just waiting outside the room. If they need anything, you're always coming in and helping and checking. Stage 3 is the plan validation. We all come back together and look at the plan that's created and just make sure that there's nothing in that plan that maybe is not in the best interests of the children mostly, or is not possible in terms of any court orders or things like that. So an example of not in the best interests of the child, it might be that families have created a plan where they're considering adults a lot, which is beautiful in the sense that they all want to be able, this young child, they all wanted that child to be able to have contact with that extended family, but it was just too much and this child was going to be traveling all the time. They were only very young. Sometimes in that plan validation stage, it might just, the reality of those things might be brought up in terms of how is that for the young person. I know it's lovely that you came to that agreement as a family and understand the importance of everybody in the child's life, but we need to think about how that's going to be on the child and the stability of them. That's a bit of a fast overview for you. I don't have a lot today, so I'm trying to get through as much as I can and share with you where I think the big benefits are in family group conferencing. The outcomes that I've seen in a conference, I think it's really tells for itself in almost every conference. We start out with families are screaming, there's no way you're going to get those people in the room together. And families come together for a conference, and by the end of the conference, I think there's been once where a full plan hasn't been created in the whole time I've been doing conferencing. And most of the time, families put in their family get-togethers with people that they weren't communicating with before. And everybody really works on a common goal to create this plan in the best interest of the child. And that's a really beautiful thing to experience and be part of. So I love family group conferencing for that reason. It's not something that I regularly see conflict in the conference. Of course, there's some, but we don't see any one. I haven't really had any conferences where I had to stop them because of conflict in any way. They definitely do work, but the key is always in the preparation. But if you're in mediation, you know that already. And that's the big key, I think. Before we start to move into the business side of being a mediator or an FGC facilitator, I just wanted to share how you can get trained in family group conferencing. So the FGC course, it is a hybrid model in that we have an online course. So there's a portal of information that you can go through and trainings in there and tools and different PDF downloads and things so you can start to really understand it all. And then we have a 3-session workshop because I really believe that being able to experience and role model that with other facilitators as well, and to be able to live get to ask questions where I can give you those experiences that I've had and share that information, and everybody else can as well. I think that's the really important part. So we do a lot of activities, a lot of role plays, and not to scare you off with the role plays, no one ever loves that, but we have a lot of discussions around different pieces and I share my experiences when questions come up. So we have 3 half-day sessions as well. I would say it's not a lot of online course information. How many hours is it, Joanne?
Maybe 20. It depends how deeply people go into it, but yeah, maybe 20 hours, less. I shall have a look, see how much time people have been spending.
I mean, we really cover. We really cover most of the half-day sessions, but the online portal is also great for you to also go back to and refresh things. We do offer also in-house. So if you want to get together some people, maybe it's in your town or in your organisation, that we can also come to you and deliver that training as well. And some people have done that with their whole organisation as their own online trainings as well. And then we can do like a hybrid where we come to you in person with some role plays too, which is also very useful. So the next training that we have coming up is in July, this month, 22nd of July. And then we have another one in October as well. So we've got some different time zones because we often have people from not just different states in Australia, but globally, which is really nice as well. It's good to see people using it everywhere. Did anyone have any questions so far about family group conferencing? And I'm a bit crazy with my clicking here. Do I click back? I'll just stop the share for a minute, sorry. Yeah, I'll open it up for a few questions before we go into the business and side of family group conferencing.
Thank you so much, Eve. So family group conferencing, would that be something that would be utilised, for example, in a situation where mediation isn't an option in relation to grandparents and grandchildren, for example? Yeah. Are there specific sort of situations and scenarios that family group conferencing abides by, or is it anything to do with family and extended family and bringing them together?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it can be used for anything. What I do see it used for and what it was originally developed for is in when there's care and protection concerns for children and young people. So that's when it's mostly used for. However, that's not the only way it's being used now. I do believe it's I would love to see it moved more into aged care. I think anything where extended families come together. Definitely, if there's extended family involved, then I think a family group conference is very appropriate. It really needs that extended family. That's what it's all about. Otherwise, it's a mediation process. It's not. It's people have really got to be willing to come understanding that it's about that extended family and creating a plan for that.
Yeah, I'd like to see it with supervised contact in the family law context to transition out of supervised contact into family support. That would be. Yeah,
it's definitely been used in some ways like that. I think that
out of home care is kind of a
often I think there has been conferences that I've done that have got more of a focus around the contact and how family are going to facilitate that and at times supervise that too.
And so some of our Aboriginal family dispute resolution practitioners are starting to use the kind of model hybrid, but bringing more wider family together for the parenting planning. So not with child protection involved, which is what we want. We want them to be able to sort things out before child protection has to come Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's where the model, should be used is in that, I guess, prevention stage.
Yeah, where there's vulnerabilities with the parents, maybe there's none of the parents are actually able to all the time provide the support the kids need.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yes, the originator of scheduling the family group conference. You mentioned the caseworker, and you kindly responded that the courts can recommend family group conferencing. So who is the lead project manager for FGC?
When you say lead project manager, do you mean of the individual case or like of
the case? Of the case. Is that the case manager?
I'm not sure if I'm 100% clear on your question, but I'll give you an example and maybe that'll answer it for you.
Yep.
So I'll give you two different separate examples. One is I'm on the panel of providers for family group conferencing. So there is a coordinator that sits in DCJ that coordinates referrals of family group conferencing. So if one of the case managers identify this family would be great for a referral, the family agree, then the referral is sent out to one of the panel of providers. So that might be me. So now I'm the facilitator. So I can decide if I think it's not appropriate for a family group conference. So I guess if it, in the words of you're using, is I would be, as a facilitator, the project manager as such. So I am facilitating, I am bringing everybody together and really making, I guess, the decisions with the family in terms of how things will continue. We do all the organisation, the inviting, the preparation, really the main roles that managers and caseworkers have in that sense is that they are sending the referral and they are coming along to the conference. They're not doing really much else in that. Or it might just be like it's a referrer, just the same as DCJ. It might be someone from out of home care service that refers. They refer it and you facilitate it and you manage that whole process.
Okay, so then thank you for that explanation. So who are then who's the referral pipelines? That's case managers. Where else would the referrers come from?
Yeah, so we'll get into this a little bit more. Maybe I'll share the slide.
Yeah, no, that's no worries. You're jumping ahead. Is that the same sort of process in Victoria, Carmen?
I was just thinking that, so when we receive our referrals, child protection has to be closed. So we wouldn't be dealing with the case manager. It's completely family led. Yeah. And as a convener, we would organise everything from there.
Yeah, great. Would it be that they were involved at some point? Is it after their involvement, before?
Yep. So child protection have investigated the case. They've identified that there's no risks, so they're due to close. So then they send it to us to see if the family's interested in coming together to have a chat about potentially what led to the child protection report and how to best keep the children safe and try and avoid any further reports moving forward.
Yeah. Okay. I really like that. It's used as a preventative tool. Yeah. There's obviously some potential maybe resource not within service kind of thing.
We just had a bit of signal interruption there, Eve. Got one word in three. Oops.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now. Your image is a bit frozen. But
sorry, if I drop out again, please let me know and I'll try to move so that the stronger internet comes back.
Okay. Yep. No problems. I think we can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, Carmen, I think that's really interesting. I really like that model actually, and I think it's such a great way to use family group conferencing. I think it's also great to use it within the child protection perspective as well, and that families are offered that even at that point. But I think, to use it prior, amazing as well. I love it.
And because it's a pilot program, it's currently being evaluated. There's 4 different pilot sites, so we're interested to see what all the results are at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, so where is the work? So The child protection agencies also, so they have panels, and obviously, as we're seeing now with Common, it's being done differently in all different states. I do see a lot of out-of-home care services referring to family group conferencing. That's a place where I have also got a lot of referrals from as well. Plans to exit supervised contact. That's definitely a strong use that we would like to see it being used in more. It's not something that I've actually got referrals for. But so the two main places that we're really seeing it is in like a family work service, a youth service. I've been referred a lot of young people from youth, particularly in the out-of-home care space, and the panel of providers as well. Does that answer your question, Dee? Yeah.
And I just dropped in the report from New South Wales.
Oh, great. I was going to suggest that. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Have you seen that coming, the evaluation?
I might have looked at it previously, but I'll have a look.
That might be interesting for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just talk about a few different marketing and business tips. I might come back to this one. This was something that Joanne put together from her experience. But first, I just wanted to talk a bit about it in terms of, and the reason for this is often when we train family group conference facilitators or mediators, it can often be something new. It might be that you've worked for organisations before but haven't actually worked as a consultant or as your own small business. And so now it's time to start thinking about actually this facilitation as a business, your consultancy work as a business. So sometimes you have to really get that business hat on and start to think about actually what is my financial goal out of the consultancy work that I'm doing. So to give you an understanding with family group conferencing, you can set your own prices. In the panel, it is a set price. So it's including GST, $120 per hour for the panel of providers. And I just charge the same amount if I do it for an out-of-home care service or another service. Some people charge a little bit more, some people charge a little bit less. I just stick it the same as the panel. So it's about thinking, what's your financial goal? Because I went from working in family preservation work and then really having so much work around family group conferencing that I was then leaving the family preservation work and just focusing on family group conferencing. But that's because I really started to then go, okay, I need to look at this as my business as a consultant. And I think that can be a tough thing to think about as well, because we're in a helping profession. So we're doing these things because we're passionate about it and this is what we want to do. We really want to help people, but it doesn't mean that we can't have a business plan and that we can have financial goals and really think about that for ourselves as a consultant too. So that doesn't mean that you care any less either. So I just wanted to share that. So thinking about what's my financial goal, how many conferences would I need to do? Sharing a bit of having a roadmap for yourself and having a business plan around that. And I think thinking beyond the FGC panel is important. So you can start to make partnerships. I'm going to go here. You can start to create partnerships with organisations, start to get yourself known. And I think this is really important in building those relationships and showing your experience, because I think, let's say you've worked in disability services for many years, there's some unique skills that not all facilitators have. So it might be that you've worked with a lot of youth as well. So again, there's more skills that not every facilitator has. So when you start to get to know all the different service providers and you start to learn and grow and network and create partnerships there, they'll start to understand if they have a referral, they might think of you because this family, it would be perfect if someone had that understanding of the needs of a family where there's disabilities. I think, yeah. Carmen?
Sorry, it's might be a dumb question. What's a panel provider?
Oh, sorry. No, it's not a dumb question. That was me assuming. In New South Wales, the DCJ has a coordinator for family group conferencing referrals. And so they put out a tender if you want to be a provider. So they call it the FGC panel of providers.
Right.
they refer to independent contractors, basically, independent consultants to facilitate. So you have to apply to be part of the panel of providers, and then they provide the referrals. And so you can say, I want to go anywhere in the state, or I just want to stay in my town and do family group conferences. And they do look at your different areas of expertise as well.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it is good. Yeah, because you don't need to, I guess you don't need to go and look for the work, you actually get the referrals.
Yeah.
But in saying that as well, you still need to create partnerships. So the reason why I got so many and why I was on the first panel was because I was building partnerships as well. And I was giving my best into all the work that I was doing, and I was continuing to learn and grow. So I think that's important as well, because people are going to want to refer to you when you're really doing your best that you can do as a facilitator. And there's so many things around that, but like one of the simple things is don't take on too much work, because if you take on too much work, you can't give your best. And I think this is such an important role in what we do in bringing families together to create plans. So
yeah, then there was a question of how many FGCs would you have manageably each week or something.
Is this a new business? So how many FGCs are manageable? It's a good question. In the panel of providers, we are allocated 15 hours of preparation, 5 hours to convene the FGC, and 1 hour after the FGC to type up the plan. Sometimes that goes over or under. If it goes over, it's okay. You can request for more hours if it's a big extended family. So you need to think about that as a workload, but you also need to think about how this work is done as well. So it's not that you can just sit down and potentially do 6 hours of work in the day as well. So there'll be different phone calls and meetings and things that you're attending. It does have a big energy with it as well. So because you're also organising, you become a bit of an event organiser as well. So there's always different things coming back and forth. So I think in the beginning, you wouldn't want to take on any more than 2 in the month until you're feeling really confident with it. I think just take on 1 when you first start. Start to build up your confidence and your understanding, start to build up your asset, and have a little, I don't know why there we go. Have a little kit for yourself. So I put this in terms of thinking of it as a business as well. So build the assets of things. So when you're sending emails, create them into templates so it becomes easier for you in the future. So as you're starting to get used to all of those things, it's going to take you a little bit longer. So I'd say start with 1, and when you feel comfortable with that, add a second for the month. So usually it's around anywhere in general, maybe around 2,000 for a conference. So if you were to do 1 a week, that would be a good income for you. So you could, if you were only doing family group conferencing, you could potentially take 1 a week on. So I remember I did 5 in a month once, and they tried to give me more, and I said no because I wanted to do a good job. So there's times where you just don't take that on. LPIs for DFFH are 2 FGCs a week. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah.
It's interesting because I have nothing to compare it to. So this is really interesting.
Yeah.
Do you find that a bit overwhelming, or is it manageable?
I've done 5 a week, so no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How many hours are you not doing the 20 hours then? I hope not if you're doing 5 a week.
Yeah, the hours don't match. But no, some are quicker than others. Sometimes just depends. Some take longer than others. But yeah, there's a good amount of prep. Once you got all the prep done, the FGC is pretty quick, straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who pays for the FGC if it's not met by child protection? South Australia FGCs are an option while there are youth court proceedings. Yeah, so Well, whoever refers is the person that needs to pay for the family group conference. They're requesting you as a consultant. So it might be that a company like Life Without Barriers have referred to me, and so they've paid for that as the referrer. So it really depends who's got the funding for the family usually. And then obviously if families want to do that privately, if you're thinking of it, let's say grandparent carers, and they come to you for an FDRP, a family, for example, there's this extended family network. This could be a model that they could use, and they would pay for that. Yeah. Was there anything that you wanted to share from here at all, Joanne? I know we're running out of time.
No, look, really, there's not a lot of information about family group conferencing out there if you look at LinkedIn or other places. So it's a really good opportunity for anyone who's willing to do a little bit of personal branding and being visible. So that was really all I was wanting to highlight. Probably the other thing as well, Mediation Institute's got a membership level for family group conference facilitators, because on the panel, because they're independent facilitators, they need to have a counselling service. So that's done through membership. We've got 6 family group conference facilitator members across the country, mainly in New South Wales, because that's where the support for that independent panel's been the strongest.
So do you feel that there's going to be more awareness for this model moving forward? It makes so much sense. It's a community that makes a family. We've heard that saying so many times. So do you see that this is something that's going to get more momentum? Because Evie, you were confirming earlier that the courts do recommend it, considering there's only a handful of people that are conference facilitators, family conference facilitators. It's amazing that the courts are aware of it too.
Yeah, look, I do. I hope so. For those of us that are working in family law, we know that the changes have been made to try and really increase the profile of our obligations under international conventions about the voice of the child. The children have a right to be involved in decisions about themselves, and our current models don't really do that directly. So that's why I've been. So the Bridging Practices webinar, you can find it on YouTube if you go to our channel. We talked a bit more about that, about bringing the wider family in that family law context, and also in better meeting the objectives in terms of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children in that connection with culture, because we know there's still a huge issue in Australia with out-of-home care, and sometimes not even within community connection care for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children. I think there's a lot of potential here.
Yeah. Right, thank you.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing an awareness in comparison to when I first started with family group conferencing. Yeah, it's completely different. Most case workers in DCJ, sorry, Carmen, I keep using all these acronyms here from the Department of Communities and Justice, that they're really, the managers of casework are really pushing for everyone to have a family group conference. It's definitely something that has just skyrocketed from when I first started family group conferencing. It's something that I think as well in child protection, they identify not only is it a great model, but also it really supports the work that they're doing. And that's been a big shift from when I saw it 10 years ago, how it wasn't as accepted in that point in time that this independent person was coming in and doing this work of creating the plan. So it was quite a shift, but I think so much has shifted in child protection work now as well, that this model just really fits so well.
And I think one of the key things is that families are usually willing to help support family members, but there's often shame, and so they don't know, like they just don't know how bad things are, and so providing a safe, non-judgmental space for that to be worked through, that's where the magic happens.
Agree. Yeah, I feel like tingles when I think about that piece, because it really is truly where the magic happens, and the contribution that we have as facilitators in this process is really quite beautiful, in that what we can contribute to families' lives and how we can allow them to really make the best decisions for their family. It's just, yeah, it's really great. And Joanne said, to give them that space where they really feel supported to come together and talk about just the most difficult things as a family, that not usually it's not something that would be easy to come together and talk in those ways about those things. So to have that supportive environment, I think is a special thing.
Mm. Yeah, so I think you briefly mentioned with our ageing society and family conflict around what happens with mum or dad when their care needs increase. This model, or maybe an adaptation of this model, would have a really good place. And I suppose skills that we don't get in basic mediation training, of dealing with all those people.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to see it in so highly used in many different areas. So I've worked with families where they're in rehabilitation centres, and when they come out, and there's plans that have been created around that as well. I think it can be used not just also with children. Can be used in many contexts.
Mm.
Okay,
Yeah,
I think that's it.
that's it. Yeah, that's it, and we've used up our time. Any final questions, comments, thoughts?
Thank you everyone for coming and being part of it today.
No worries.
Everyone, thank you.
And I'll just